Hello, nice to see you all. It's another episode of Disruption Talks. My name is Radek Zaleski, senior partner at NetGuru, and interesting circumstances today. I am talking from my parent house, so you can see a lot of different pictures and antique environment behind my head, and we'll be talking about less antique things today with Charlene Li, a thought leader and an advisor. Charlene, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Charlene Li. I'm a longtime analyst and author, and New York Times bestselling author of 6 books, soon to be 7, hopefully. And I cover disruptive technologies and transformation, as well as strategy and leadership.
Thank you, Charlene. We discussed before this today's podcast. The disruption that everyone is talking around, which is of course generative AI. Of course, it is. Now, I understand, advise or you're advising different executives, different companies for many, many, many years. You've probably seen a lot of such disruptive forces. And probably you've heard a lot that now this is the thing. Now you should be paying attention. Now, is it different right now, or is it like it's like yet another trend that it will pass? What's your view on it?
Well, I have been around for a long time. I graduated from Harvard Business School the same month that the World Wide Web was invented. And so I left and decided to go
Nice.
straight into a space that was being disrupted by the internet. I went and worked for a newspaper in Silicon Valley called the San Jose Mercury News. And so I've been at the very beginning of this highly disruptive period over the past 30 some years. And
Hmm.
the thing that I have seen over and over again is that it's never about the technology. It's always about the people. And this technology is different because it is inherently about the way we do work. And it changes directly, and anybody with a browser can access it. You don't need an IT department to put it in. You don't need to understand how to use APIs. And that's the thing that's very different and powerful about this technology. Web3, who knows what that is? Crypto, most people can't go near it. And so these are things that don't really change fundamentally the way we relate to each other. Whereas I
Yeah.
think generative AI absolutely changes and is highly transformational.
Right. So, I believe you. I think I've been very vocal about this, that it is totally different. But sometimes I feel this is like too much different. We discussed one of those examples from the recent days or even weeks that, as you've mentioned, people are using this in the browser. It's really accessible. And if you're more techy, you could do some scripts that allows you to apply for, let's say, 1,000 jobs in like no time, which is highly disruptive for individuals, for their careers. On the other hand, there are tools, systems that can scan the people who are applying for the jobs in the real time. Maybe they can scan 1,000 applications in, I don't know, 60 seconds or whatever. Now, so it is mind-boggling because for me, like, I can see efficiency gains on one side, efficiency gains on the other side. I can see and think about a lot of different ways how it can be helpful, but it's not easy as an executive, I guess, to understand, okay, what should I do, where should I play, where should I put focus on. So what would be your advice here? What are you seeing and when you're discussing with companies or executives?
Yeah, the biggest issue is we're not quite sure how this technology is working. And the way I like to put it is that we are still so early in this. Again, we go back to the internet. We are at basic HTML. If you go back and remember and look at those pages, they were
Mhm.
almost non-functioning. It was just basically a static page, and you can do
Yeah,
anything with it.
yeah.
So we're at that stage, and
Hmm.
we are just beginning to explore what these tools are. So given that uncertainty, and also we know these tools sometimes make mistakes, are we going to
Yeah.
trust it? We don't trust it. And yet at the same time, I think we are pulling together all these different use cases. And use cases are not a strategy. You have a business strategy. And so the best way to use generative AI is to say, this is our strategy. These are the gaps that we have in our strategy between where we want to be and where we are today. How can we use generative AI to close those biggest gaps? How do we understand how generative AI creates value for us, our employees, our customers, all of our stakeholders. And so using that as a foundation of your strategy, thinking big is my thing that I think is missing right now. Thinking big,
Mhm.
starting small, and then scaling fast.
Right. So let's try to focus on this missing part that you are pinpointing. What I've observed a lot is that through our customers, I mostly talk to our customers, and I hear what they're asking, what they're saying is that they always ask about the use case, the use case, the use case. Like, who is doing this? Is it proven? Can I apply it to my part of some process here and there? And it's how to say it. Uh, does not seem coherent sometimes, and sometimes it feels like there's a lot of rupture between divisions. And what you've mentioned, that there's that it should be the other way, that it should with a strategy. Do I hear this right?
That's correct. And again, I don't think that developing use cases is bad. I think if you only do that and don't have a strategy, it means that everybody's going to go after their pet project wherever they can see value. And because there's so much uncertainty, you're more likely to go find something that's easy and
Hmm.
just basically table stakes. And I'm not saying don't do that, but if that's the only thing you do, you're going to miss out on the transformative power. So let me take marketing, for example. You
Yeah.
can use it to go and create content. That's
Right.
great. You can use it to streamline that, reduce the repetitive work that you have in doing analysis. But if it only stays at that and you don't think about how could this transform the way we form relationships with customers, you're missing a big opportunity.
So what would you advise? What would be the good thought process? So say, I will give you a precise example, maybe it will help me. So for 5 years, I was running growth at our company, NetGuru Growth, which meant basically content marketing, brand, different stuff, social media, demand generation. So I was this executive, right? Dealing with all of those things, having goals, KPIs to achieve. Now, the generative AI comes, and probably I am like, oh, let's have this use case to write social media posts using AI, this and that. What I should do, in your view, to get a more strategic view on this? What steps should I take, being in a such role?
Well, you talked about you had very specific goals that you had to meet. And so I
Yeah.
would break down those goals, look at what my biggest challenges are, and also just say where are the opportunities where I can use generative AI to help me accomplish those goals better, faster, cheaper. And
Hmm.
there are but then it puts a container around what you're doing. It puts a focus on how you're going to use generative AI to help you achieve your goals. The way I like to put it is leaders are very successful because they are good at achieving their top 3 goals. So figure out what your leader is trying to accomplish
Hmm.
because you are very unlikely to change what their goals are. And then make
Yeah.
sure that generative AI supports those goals. Use the same KPIs. What KPIs do you use to measure your progress towards those goals? Then use those same KPIs to say, is generative AI helping me achieve our goals? So people are like, how do I measure the value and ROI of
Hmm.
generative AI? And I go, you don't measure the value of a technology. You measure the value that the technology has to create that value.
Yeah.
So it's
So
measuring the
yeah.
value, not the technology.
Right. So I don't change too much in how I basically run my thing. I rather try to apply this new tool to see if it can move the needle in the key numbers I am, responsible for, right?
Right. Yeah, it's something that we're working on, something called the generative AI value flywheel.
Okay.
Because if you start at looking at productivity and efficiency, that's a good place to start because it's easy to identify that and to see, okay, these are some things that we do, for example, in marketing or in lead gen or even in a sales process that could just be made more efficient because of generative AI. Then the next level is to say, if you once you have that productivity wheel going, it gives you more capacity and
Mhm.
more time and people to go and look at how do we enhance customer experiences and engagement. And you might be producing new products and innovation, as well as using all of the data that you now have. And then from there, once you have that, you can say, well, what new things could we do? What new competitive advantage could we have to create transformation of our organization and maybe even of our industry, of our business? So this flywheel, once you starts
Hmm.
going, it starts supporting the other parts of the flywheel. The biggest problem is that we tend not to think beyond the productivity and efficiency side of things. And so knowing that there's going to be a trajectory that you
Hmm.
could end up going from efficiency to enhancing experiences to actual transformation is this path that I think most people are not thinking about. And it's because we lack what I think is the biggest shortcoming of any capability inside an organization. We lack imagination of what this future could look like. So if you believe
Um,
that you may not even know what the transformation may be, but you believe that you can transform, then you'll start yourself on that path.
uh, when we are describing this, I'm wondering, maybe you can answer. If not, that's totally fine. If you don't have an example before your eyes right now, but are there any companies or products that you think are already a bit ahead in this transformation? That you look at those, companies or leaders, and you think like, oh, they get this a bit better than the others. Do you have
Yeah,
such examples?
yeah, I talked to one company, and they're a call center of 130,000 people all around the world. And you think about call centers like, well, they're prime for being, again, highly disrupted by this. So they
Yeah.
realized this early on. So in beginning of 2023, in January 2023, they started working on productivity and efficiency. And within the first year, they had seen tremendous gains. Processing time reduced by 25 to 30%, errors reduced by 85 to 90%,
Wow.
and training reduced by 40%. And so, what they found is that they were able to take the bottom tier of representatives, so their agents, and make them much more productive. And
Yeah.
then taking that extra productivity, by the end of 2023, they were launching new products and services. And so
Okay.
now in 2024, now that they have all of these capabilities, they're now planning on how can we develop all of these new products and services and give ourselves this huge competitive advantage for
Right.
our that we can move into new places because even our
Right.
customers won't use generative AI. So we can be their solution for many other things and they will outsource more things to us.
So
That
it's
is
not only
transformational.
so it's not only tactical that we achieved some, productivity gains and do things more efficient, faster, but also thinking around that. So if we have this huge unlock, where do we put the three resources, the three capabilities, and also the learnings from those initial phase of automation to improve our relation with customers and with the market, right?
Right. Yeah, and they realized this right from the very beginning. They could see the transformational power of generative AI. So they go, "We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we see the potential for that." And so they said they put together this three-part strategy
Hmm.
of efficiency and then launching new products and services to enhance the customer experience and to do better with their existing customers. And then transformation, going after new customers, being disruptive, creating competitive advantage. So this was developed right from the very beginning. And I think that is a
Hmm.
great example for people to say, well, how do I think much more strategically about how generative AI can transform my organization?
Right. So yeah, because so when you're describing this, I think it's maybe not pretty easy. I don't want to be to say that it's easy to do projects with AI, deploy them on production, because we do it themselves with our customers, and it's not that straightforward. But also, it's not that hard to imagine what can be done with generative AI, with applying those large language models right now in certain areas, saying even up to next year ahead. The bigger question is, how should leaders try to adapt what will be here with 5 or 10 years horizon, and how to adapt to it, and if there are any frameworks or think mental models that should be applied to understand this. And if you have any good examples, that would be also great to hear.
Yeah, I think our capacity as leaders and managers to think far off in the future is fairly limited because we're very
Hmm.
focused on establishing what our goals are for the next quarter and achieving those goals. And so we
Yeah.
don't naturally think very strategically. So this is a practice that is always very hard for leaders to focus on the current situation we're in, the status quo, and then also
Mhm.
imagine what that change could look like in the future. It's really difficult to do that. And so I think for you to look at past times when your organization has gone through a significant change and transformation. And we don't have to go that far. We can go all the way back to the pandemic because we were forced to
Mhm.
change with the pandemic.
Yeah, correct.
And we changed on a moment's notice. So we are capable of doing this. We just don't think we want to or need to because it's hard. It's really
Yeah,
messy.
you
And
might hear things that are not comfortable, right? To hear, or if you have a very good imagination, you can imagine things that are frightening. You've mentioned the call center, right? Business. If you go very far, looking for far in the future, and you think about your traditional call center business in 10 years, like, is it still there, right? Understood as a business right now. But again, if you're, in my view, great leader, and if you try to apply understandings of what is happening right now, and you're ahead, as you mentioned, unlocking those resources, capabilities to understand the systems better, you can at least try to adapt and try to predict and maybe try to build those capabilities right now. So you're not, laggard when the whole situation changes. And I think it is changing rapidly right now.
right. And I think the call center is a perfect example because you can see how your business is going to be impacted by this. And you have two choices. You can slow walk this as slow as you can and try to avoid making the changes because it's just the idea that so many things that we do today are not going to exist in the future is so hard to understand. I just don't want to deal with it. I'll be tired before I have to deal with this usual thinking. And or you can be like this organization and be charging forward and saying, well, if my existing business is going to be highly disrupted, then I have to find new businesses to get into, new capabilities, and develop them faster and better than my competition. In fact,
Yeah.
what it struck me is that they saw opportunity in this disruption, that they could move faster than their clients could in putting in AI. For example, they work with a lot of law firms. They go, these
Hmm.
law firms are never going to get generative AI set up. So we will
Oh.
do that. We will be their resource so that they can outsource their processes that can be done so much better by generative AI.
Hmm.
Even if they do it themselves now, they'll be so much better off giving it to us to do. So I think, again, thinking really strategically
Hmm.
about what you do, what you won't be able to do, how generative AI is going to impact the way that you work, and having very realistic and honest with yourself to say, we are going to be disrupted. And this is what I've learned over 30 years. Disruption always creates opportunities. It is neutral. It doesn't say, what is it's always good and always bad. It may destroy things, but it always creates new opportunities too. So you have to look for
Uh,
those opportunities.
just a quick pause for our listeners and people who are viewing this live. If you would like to ask a question to Charlene or you have a comment, feel free to do it on wherever you're watching this, and we'll try to get those questions if we see them and ask them here live. So if again, repeat, if you have any questions, please write them down, and I will try to pass them to Charlene. Charlene, thank you for describing this, this disruption as a potential for, something new. And we already, describe this, what you've described, a flywheel concept, right? That how it can lead to improving the business or transforming the business into maybe something different. Depends if it is going to be the same size, but it might be something different and more resilient in the future. My question would be um, regarding the real implementation to the organizations of such transformations, and to be very exact in examples. If you are talking about this case of a call center, right? One thing is me and you are talking freely, casually about some kind of a random business that will be transformed, and totally different is to be a mid-level manager in this organization when this huge shift comes, right? And your leader tells you, you know what, disruption, disrupt it, go. And so how do we build trust, or how to approach this, right?
Yeah,
With the market, with employees.
yeah, again, like, as I was saying, it's never about the technology, it's always about the people, because a
You're right.
transformation doesn't happen without the people. And I feel for these middle managers. I've always have felt for them when a disruption comes along and a transformation, the next transformation we're gonna go through as a company, they just feel so much change fatigue because
Yeah.
it's constantly changing. When do we get a
Yeah.
chance to stabilize and say, "Great, we've done this change. Look at how far we've come." And so I think it's a fault of the leaders who are creating the change. That if the middle manager doesn't believe them, it's because they've talked about change in the past but never followed through. And so organizations that are very good at disruption and transformation, and I've studied these organizations, what is it that allows them to transform over and over and over again, to constantly disrupt themselves? And
Right.
the one thing that they do is that they're constantly looking to the future, and they're making sure that they're doing everything possible to run towards that future as quickly as possible. But there is alignment, there is a pause in terms of saying, okay, we've done this change. Where are we? Let's see how far we've come. They look back, they celebrate, they take a break, and then they keep moving forward. They don't do really big disruptions all the time. What they're doing is
Hmm.
they're constantly disrupting every single day. They're running as fast as they can, and they're taking the time and creating a very strong container to say, "This is where we are. This is where we're going to be. Are we here? Okay, how far have we gone? Here are the gaps. Let's close those gaps and then keep going." But they're making sure that everyone knows exactly where they need to be, where they need to be going, and there is this tremendous alignment about what the future looks like and where they're heading towards it. Now, it doesn't mean they always agree. They disagree a lot,
Yeah.
in fact, and they're
Yeah.
very, very good at disagreeing, but they all have the same goal in mind. And that's what makes it all feasible. They can disagree like crazy. Somebody makes a decision and then they're off again because they know that the next time it may be not their decision, but somebody else's decision or vice versa. And you have to agree to disagree and then be able to commit and move forward.
When we're preparing to this conversation, you've mentioned the concept of AI trust pyramid framework. So is what you've just described, is this concept?
Yes, it is. So the trust pyramid is again, you don't trust generative AI very much. And
Yeah.
so one of the ways to trust it and to create trust in your organization is to use this pyramid. And I think of it as similar to the Maslow's hierarchy
Uh-huh.
of needs. And so at the
Hmm.
very bottom, there's safety, security, and privacy. If
Hmm.
those are not secured, if you do not feel that you can be safe with generative AI, you're not
Right.
going to go near it. So make sure people understand how to use it, how to stay safe with it, what data
Hmm.
can you use with it. And then after that, you want to be guaranteed that the model is fair. And
Yeah.
your definition of fair may not always be universal. So again, fairness is not an absolute. It is very much how you define it. So make sure that everybody understands how you're thinking about fairness. Is it about equity or is it about being
Hmm.
equitable? Then we think about quality and accuracy. Do you have to be 100% accurate all the time? Or if
Oh
you're
yeah.
a marketing department and you need to get something out on deadline, what's the quality that's acceptable
Yeah.
at that point? And then we have accountability and responsibility. When something goes wrong, who is going to be responsible for it and accountable for it? And then finally, transparency at the very top. Being very clear about when you're using AI to build trust, when is it
Hmm.
necessary to be transparent, and when is it not needed? So that will shift as your trust grows with AI. And
So,
it also is
so
different internally versus externally.
So it's going back to this discussion about strategy versus give me a use case tomorrow. So what you're how I understand this, what you're advocating for is that first agree on those fundamentals. First, try to build this pyramid. First, get a sign off from your team's employees, but also peers at the management, maybe the board, depending on where are you seated at the company, and only then it is a good moment to try to apply transformative uh, processes, systems using the new technology. In this case, we are talking generative AI,
Right.
not the other way around, right?
Right. I mean, I cannot emphasize how important it is to have training and to have governance. I mean,
Yeah.
people hate the word governance because they think it's about slowing things down. I actually love really good governance. I call it Goldilocks governance. Is the idea that it's not too much, just the right amount to get you moving so that you can go fast. Because when you know what you can do and what you cannot do, then it gives you a lot more security. You feel a lot more safe and you trust
Yeah.
that what you're doing is going to be fine. So you can make mistakes and it'll be okay, but don't make really big mistakes like jeopardizing our data. So, um, again, knowing what that looks like and having that defined for you is a great way to build trust, especially when everything else is changing. There needs to be some things that just do not change. I think of it as building scaffolding for that middle
Hmm.
manager so that
Yeah.
they can climb really high and feel safe.
Charlene, you are based in San Francisco. I'm based in European Union. Should we start a conversation about governance and regulation right now, or is it too early to
No, you
joke
can
about this?
this is the way I think about it is, the more you are involved in understanding what the regulations are, you may
Uh-huh.
feel like there's nothing I can do as an individual. But I think there is quite a bit to be aware of what the regulations are
Hmm.
saying, and then being prepared to say, this is what we really want, and be able to comply with it. I can guarantee you the work that you do as an organization, if you are putting in place responsible and ethical AI, will be in compliance with whatever the regulators come up with. So do
Yeah.
the right thing in terms of being ethical, responsible, and transparent about what you're doing, and you'll be fine. So people say all the time, we can't move forward until regulations are clear. The regulations already so much exists in terms of what to do with data, with
Yeah.
privacy, safety, and
Yeah.
security. That is a big part of it, and then the transparency is the other part of it that most people are thinking about.
Yeah. Going into more detail about this, we I've read, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, about unfortunate situation where someone who was using one of those chatbots personalities based on large language models unfortunately committed suicide, if I remember correctly, because of it is perceived that this person took too much to heart, the conversation with this avatar chatbot, and there's a discussion if this was the reason for a suicide, or did it push this individual to make this happen. And we do not know, right? There is it's a speculation right now, but for sure what we know right now is that we do not know who might be responsible for it, right? Is it people who let this go, this application, or people who designed it, or people who were responsible, I don't know, quality assurance. And I think, going back what you've said, right, to have this clear understanding of this pyramid and some kind of agreement maybe might maybe not potentially help with the situation, but for sure will make easier for people to navigate in those very difficult environment right now that we do not know how to tackle with those issues, right?
Yeah,
And I can, yeah,
yeah, and I think, again, as I said before, technology is neutral. How you use it is really up to the people and the person. And so I've heard about this cases, and actually quite a few cases where people were so desperate they turned to these chatbots to
hmm,
find some relief, and whatever reason, it unfortunately was not enough, or may have caused it. Who knows, right? But I
yeah,
also know that quite a few people use these tools to get a lot of
of
the advice,
course,
to be able to express themselves in the
of
way that they
course,
would normally not be able to. So I don't think we can judge it either way. It can be used
yeah,
for both purposes.
of
And the
course,
key is with both, you need guardrails. You need
yeah,
guardrails for the way you design it, the way you put it in place, everything to keep people as safe as possible and be responsible for that. But in the end, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, correct.
So yeah,
So yeah, and what you've mentioned about this um, uh, pyramid and this agreement between the parties, how we run the governance of the whole thing, and how we have a between mutual agreement what we think is right, what's not right. I think it goes both ways, right? So one thing is that we can see a lot of dangers, and because of that, we don't want to push things forward. But on the other hand, this technology, and I'm really, really huge optimist about this technology, it is sometimes so groundbreaking but for example, as a European, that in European Union, those technologies are being regulated and they are, roll out a bit slower than in the US. Sometimes I'm not happy about this, right? So I will give you a precise example. Recently, I was a bit sick. My Apple Watch gave me a signal that my vitals are off the charts. So I dumped my health data out of my watch and I uploaded to the AI and I asked just give me something, like tell me what's wrong. And what I've read was really, really interesting and it was really compelling. Was it true? I don't know. Was it the doctor? Not really. But was it valuable for me? Did I learn a lot? Yes. So one thing is making sure that this technology does not tell us too much that might harm my health. And sometimes Oh, I think I've dropped for a moment.
yeah, so you're
Sorry
back.
for that. I'm back. Sorry. Where did I finish, or where
You were
my
finishing up
connection dropped?
about the medical advice that you were getting from the AI?
Yeah. So to finish, yeah. So on the other hand, it will be great to have some kind of a governance around this, but on the other hand, as a consumer, I love to have access to it, and I love be able to get some insights out of it. I don't want to be this technology to block for by external forces from me, because I see huge value out of it, right? And as a conscious user that understands the limitations, it gives me a lot value right now at this moment. So as you mentioned, it has both sides, right,
It is.
on the equation.
You think about the internet, you can do a search on the internet and get some really good advice, and you can also get some really bad advice. And
Right.
so there are all these disclaimers. I like to say the most important skill you have to use AI correctly and well is critical thinking. And so it's be able to look at something, look at the results, go, does that make sense? To not just take everything at face value. And I also think that as a leader, the biggest challenge is that this is all very scary. This all looks really hard. And so your tendency is like, well, I can't afford to make a mistake. So therefore, I'm just going to stay exactly where I am and not go anywhere until someone says to me, you have to go. And so this is the difference between being a leader in this space and a manager in the space. Leaders create change and managers hold on to the status quo. And I think right now what we need are leaders, people who are using these tools, understand the power, and can lead and create that change. And this is where I keep coming back to leadership is a courageous act. Being a leader requires a tremendous amount of courage because you're stepping into the unknown, you're creating change that no one else is going to create. And so you're stepping into that space and taking people and saying, this is where we're going to go. And then the hard part is creating that container, that space to say, you're going to feel safe doing this too. So, this is how we're going to do this. And building that confidence to know that no matter what happens, no matter what the outcome is going to be, we're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. So, let's get going.
Charlene, thank you for this optimistic note. I need to ask you. You are again a speaker, keynote speaker, an author. Any upcoming publications in your pipeline?
Yes, I have a new book with my co-author Katja Welsh, who is a longtime friend. We've known each other for a really long time, like 25 years. And she's chief digital officer at Harvard Business School, and before that was
Mhm.
at Levi Strauss and Vodafone. So she has been a chief AI officer. So I am so lucky to write this book called Winning with Generative AI, the 90-day playbook for success. And it lays out week by week how to create a well thought through intentional strategy that helps you build competitive advantage.
Thank you. Is it already
Now it'll
published
be
or
coming out in January.
January? So okay, so the listeners, we have 2 months waiting time. Maybe you can pre-order it or give it a voucher to someone for Christmas. Who knows? Uh,
And very soon.
it's go. Time flies. It's going really happening soon. Charlene, thank you very much for the conversation. I've learned a lot. It was great to have you, and looking forward to reading your book. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. See you. It was another episode of Disruption Talks, and thank you for being with us. Bye.